to live. So happy I could die right now, but I'm so fly I can die right now. If I die, I could say bye right now. So high I could touch the sky right now. I never want to come down.
Okay, welcome everyone to Of All the Hills. This is the one I chose to die on. I have a very long title, but I shorten everything. So to you, it's just Of All the Hills. Or basically, if you're going to see it on social media, it's going to look like Oath to you. So that's it. Basically, this is a experience. Since I'm a hipster, I don't want to call this a podcast. I'm just going to call it an experience. Basically, this is where I tell you about the hills that you're dying on and why they're wrong, while giving you ridiculous hills that you should just not have an opinion on. One of the ones that I came up with today was that, so this was a tag team, shout out to Marlene, that Rona is punishment for people not liking French toast. I think if you don't like French toast, you need to grow up. French toast is better than waffles. Like, I think when you get to the pearly gates, God is gonna like really make you answer for some of those shitty French toast things that you made, like where you didn't put enough cinnamon in there. Like, you think it's gonna be about your like public intoxication arrests, but it's really gonna be about the French toast you made, and that it wasn't good enough.
Hold on. I'm not too familiar with French toast. I have heard of freedom toast.
Freedom toast.
Are they like kind of
Remember when we were trying to do that, like freedom fries? Like we were like angry at the French for like 3 seconds, and we're like,
right? Yeah, we hated France for not invading the wrong country.
So again, as you can already tell, most of this will be a mix between serious and funny, and a bit of both. Will kind of switch in between that. I was just telling these beautiful people who have joined me that I don't believe in editing, so this shit is basically TV. Also, like, I might be cursing, I might not be cursing. Like, I don't know, don't watch this with your kids, or maybe watch this with your kids because like they need to hear this.
Right.
Maybe I'll have intro music, maybe I won't. This is a test run, this will probably go live, who knows? We just make up our own rules. I've also decided 2 seconds ago that I am going to have a nice little virtual background each and every time. I didn't even realize this is up here, but basically if you can't read it, it says, it's okay to fall apart sometimes. Tacos fall apart and we still love them. Which, like, yes.
You know, it's true.
Uplifting. Yeah. So forget about me. I guess like you'll see my face enough. I also hate introducing myself, but we'll get to that. You can all introduce yourself. John is cooking crack cocaine right now, which is why he is on mute and he doesn't show his face.
Right.
But we'll go around. So Mr. Name's Not Keith, you can introduce yourself, and Steven is calling me right now. So I'm gonna go on. Go ahead.
The boss man is calling you. All right. Hello everyone. My name is Keith. I'm host of the podcast Liberal-ish. So I'm going to be here today to defend my girl Kamala Harris. Go Bison.
Okay. My name is Carlye. I'm working on a lot of things. Don't really know where I'm going with it, but right now, I guess for all intents and purposes, I'm not a fan of Kamala. I'm very upset about this election. So, you know, hopefully we can get into it and throw some ideas around.
Mr. Drug Dealer, I don't know if you were at a
oh yeah,
point
what's up, man? Y'all don't know, man. We already. No, I'm kidding. Nah, man, it's King Salomon, man. I do a lot of these. It's gonna be fun doing with you guys though. I've been on an argument here with Ty lately, and I don't know how I feel about it because usually we see each other eye to eye, and recently he's been on these waves that I'm not sure if there's an eternal struggle thing or what, but we'll get there. We'll touch on it.
Listen, I had to get in Of All the Hills mode. I don't know. I was just very in my feelings last night about Dame. I mean, I probably would have cried if like we lost. So it was either gonna go like I'm ready to start arguing and talking shit to people, or like I'm gonna be really sad.
I can't talk Sixers basketball with anyone else. I mean, that's how really tied I am to it. So I understand. Like whenever our group chat starts like shitting on Philly, I just leave.
That's a hill that I'm prepared to let the world know, the hill I'm ready to die on for that one. But we'll get there.
Yeah, that'll be another one. Actually, and that's the thing. Like, I feel like I was kind of saying that I think these aren't going to be as frequent, but there's so many hills that I feel like we might wind up doing this shit like all the time, and that's fine for me. Okay, so besides testing this out and seeing if this worked and was fun, yesterday we got the breaking news that Mr. Joe Biden, the former vice president and the dude that's trying to get y'all mans up out of here, has finally selected his black VP that was maybe promised or maybe not. I'm not sure. Feel free to check out, I'm also going to be doing this all the time too. Check out Kevin Ijoma's article on what to expect about the vice president options. You can just look for it yourself. I'm not going to put it up, do Googles. So my pick was Susan Rice. I'm just gonna come out and say it. She seemed big spicy. She seemed like she knows she was doing. I think she's also Team Light Skin Gang. So you weren't, gonna miss out on the colorists who were, pulling up to the polls. And I mean, again, I get the Kamala bit. I get that she was, in the presidential election, people got to hear her. She's been putting niggas in jail. So there's all those things that are great. But I don't know. I'm still wrong one. You picked the wrong black woman.
Just to touch on that, it's interesting to hear reactions because I know I put in chat yesterday. I was surprised by Black Twitter. You guys kind of put me in my place. Well, she's just not extreme enough. And honestly, what did we expect Joe to do? I mean, Joe's not extreme. I mean, this weird GOP strategy to try to make it seem like he's not he's just gonna listen to Joe Biden is as central as you can get. I mean, if politics wasn't so absolutely insane, people would probably call him a Republican. The guy. So I think he chose exactly who he is, and Kamala's the bridge enough between the real left side of the party, and she's still way central enough where she can be hey, I put a lot of niggas in jail. So what else do you expect?
It's for me, I spent all morning going on on Twitter because it's crazy to me how people just don't Google stuff. It's as if they hear something and just oh, I'm gonna go with it. I have been very critical of Kamala Harris ever since she was a presidential candidate. I had no idea why she even thought that was her lane to begin with. I was very confused. So I wasn't surprised when she dropped out, and I can't even say that I'm surprised that he was her VP. But I will say I blame Charlemagne the God and Diddy for this, because they campaigned so hard and sent letters and all this, please pick a black woman. And I think we're so conditioned to believe that anybody that's black is a win for us. And I really just want us to kind of abolish that way of thinking, because it's very harmful to us as a community, and it allows other communities to continue to kind of give us a little bit to make us happy, but not really giving us enough to actually do anything and make a difference.
So there's two things here. So one, the hate around Kamala Harris, some of it's not fair. We should be hating on the state of California, right? California kind of
always here to hate on California,
right? They paint them Cali, New York, Jersey, these deep blue states paint themselves as beacons progressivism. Yet when you peel back the curtain a little bit, they're not. I think California.
Jersey is the most secretly red state that there is.
I say this all the time.
You get outside of
Jersey,
if
you live in Jersey, you know it's insane that we're a blue state. It's insane we're a blue state.
Right. Okay. Even in parts of New York, I'm not from New York, but even if you go to some parts of New York, it does not feel like a blue state at all. In California, a lot of those Karen videos are in Northern Cali of just white women going to the park and calling the cops on some black dude, right? So like we should probably direct our hate more towards like the state of California not being as progressive as they made out to be, as opposed to like Kamala Harris. And I think too, talking about like what Carol said, it's like a double-edged sword, right? Like, yes, we don't want to like throw our support behind like every Black person, like, you know, we don't want to throw our support on like, you know, like Candace Owens, for example, right? That's detrimental. But we do need to have representation. We've never had like a Black woman like be the second in line on top of a ticket like this before. So we should kind of put our support behind that. Just because like if we don't, we might not have this again. You know what I mean?
Right. I think when you use representation, like I started to think of like people like Condoleezza Rice. Like Condoleezza Rice is a Black woman, but it's like, girl, are you? Because it's like, you know, her, Omarosa. It's like, I think we have to start. I think as a Black woman myself, it's like kind of offensive that people expect me to kind of be like, oh, like sister girl, like you're Black, I'm Black, you're a woman, I'm a woman, like we are for each other. Like I think with Kamala, like I think my issue is I have a hard time just supporting any Black person that chooses a job where they're responsible for the incarceration of other Black people. I hate to say this, but I don't like cops. I don't like prosecutors. So I think the system already does enough to do like on its own without our help, putting away Black people. So I just think sometimes people are like, you know, I want to fix the system from within. It's not happening. You're not going to fix a system that has been in place for centuries.
It's just that's like a PR thing that unions say, police chiefs say, like, oh, just sign up for the police department. No. I agree.
No.
So wait, so I do have a question on that. Like, so there was obviously all of what she was doing that was coming into this of, you know, trying to supplant herself. And so obviously she needs to not just show that she's just for Black people. But do you think, given especially this backlash that she is certainly getting, and just kind of being in this spot that she does kind of pivot to try to like make amends for, you know, her past and try to be that like, I'm the Black woman, you know, VP that's going to be for Black people?
I think for that, we would have to wait and see, because at this point, like we can't do anything about what she's done in the past at this point. Like she is the VP candidate for the Democrats, and you know it is our responsibility to vote, to go out and vote, especially if you spent the last 3.5 years saying, oh, I hate Trump, he has to go. We still have to vote. So I think when you think about it that way, the only option you really have is to hope that she'll take the criticism, the right criticism, because she's owed this criticism, and listen and actually start to kind of fix the mistakes that she's made in the past. I want to say that I'm optimistic that maybe that will be the case. And with Joe Biden too. Joe Biden has faced a lot of criticism for his old policies and some of the old clips that have resurfaced about some of the things that he said. So I think going forward, especially if we're all on the same page about how divisive Trump has been and how racist he's been, and the desire to get him out of the office, we have to vote for her. We have to vote for Biden, and kind of just hope and stay optimistic that maybe they'll start to focus more on fixing the issues that we're saying we have with them.
You know, it's funny real quick. This election literally reminds me of the first Trump election, except the roles are completely reversed. Like I used to work in corporate America then. I used to work in corporate America, and I remember like hearing these people talk about Trump and how, you know, they were excited about Trump, but not even outside of being excited for Trump. Their hatred for Hillary was so deep that they were just like happy to not vote for her, right? So now I feel like this election is almost reversed, where I see a lot of people like, listen, Joe may not have been my first choice and I may not like the guy, but I'd rather vote for a fucking rock than
you want to know why?
Trump. You know what I'm saying?
So the reason for that is because people are seeing what not voting does, or not paying attention to the election does. You know, so I think it's fucked up that we had to go through Trump for 4 years in order for us to reach that conclusion. Because I think for a lot, I know for me specifically, my first presidential election was last election. That was the first time I was able to vote. I was 19, and I just remember like watching the campaign, and I just was like, oh, like I know Donald Trump, the realtor, the real estate mogul, the the businessman, but I think at the time I was in school and I had chosen my major for criminal justice, and I had just did a presentation on the Central Park Five, and I remember just kind of replaying in my head the things that he said about 5 brown boys in 1990, and I just said, this isn't it. And I think for me at 19, if I was able to reach that conclusion, it was very upsetting that a lot of older people or a lot of other people didn't pay enough attention to the election to vote for Hillary. And I'm not saying I wanted to vote for Hillary. I didn't. I wanted to vote for Bernie. I wanted Bernie to win. But I think now people see what happens when you don't vote, or when you don't take, all your options, you don't pay attention to what's going on in politics, because this can't happen again. Like, Trump can't be president again. And if people are as outraged as they say they are, I hope that they'll go out and vote despite how they feel.
So I'll say this, to answer Ty's question. I think Kamala kind of has to like position herself as like, hey, I hear you guys, Black people. I'm going to like do things for you now. Just because like one, Tulsi Gabbard, that clip of her like kind of killing Kamala Harris on the debate stage is resurfacing on Twitter. Two, Kamala Harris had a lot of like established Democrats backing her, a lot of established donors backing her in the campaign. She really fucked up that campaign though. Like, I think she had like issues with like between like her sister and like the campaign manager. So she really kind of fucked that one up, right? And then 3, like she didn't really have much Black support. Now that is kind of consistent with what happened to like Barack Obama when he first came out. Black people didn't like really support you at first because they were gonna try to do like a wait and see approach. I think with Kamala, I don't think she resonated that much with like the Black community outside of going to Howard and like being an AKA. So I think she has to. I think she kind of has to, right? I think like that question, we know how the 24/7 media works. She's going to be killed a lot about like, her policing record, what she's going to do, Black Lives Matter. That's going to come up a lot. So I think she's going to have to pivot into let's do a criminal justice reform bill. The House already has one. Let's just push that through.
I also feel like she has to stop acting as if she didn't do anything. Because even to reference the debate where she went against Tulsi Gabbard, she said she was proud of her record as an attorney general, and I think that to me was kind of alarming, because exactly what are you proud of? For anybody that didn't see the clip or they don't like kind of know what was happening, she was facing a representative from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard, and she basically called out Kamala and saying she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana convictions, and then simultaneously laughed at it when she went on the Breakfast Club and said, oh, I smoked weed in college by listening to Tupac and Biggie, but they weren't even out when she was in college, so I don't know what she's talking about. So I think she has to stop acting as if, these accusations are coming out of nowhere. You did these things, and you can, this was your role as an attorney general, a prosecutor, a district attorney. I understand that people have roles, but acknowledge that. Say, I might have dropped the ball. I should have been a little less harsh on marijuana convictions. I apologize. I'm moving forward. I hear you. But you're continuing to act as if, oh, I just did my job, it's no big deal. There are people, especially if you're talking about California, which is a 3-strike state, it's extremely harmful. It's extremely harmful. And there's a lot of people to this day who may not see the light of day, or whose family has been, trying to get them out of prison because of her practices and policies. And I think if you align yourself with certain ideologies, it's extremely hard to support someone that is against the things that you believe, which I feel is what my core issue with Kamala is she's a walking contradiction, and she's extremely hurtful in her role as what she's done for the state of California. And I'm kind of scared if that's what you did as your role in California, what will you do when you're in charge of, the whole country?
But and again, I think it goes back to the point earlier. She's not a real leftist. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's not. She is very much. Again, if this was any other time, this her and Biden would be seen as almost like a Republican ballot.
Absolutely.
It's just because we're in such a hyper political environment that and the reason, and I know it's gonna be controversial, but I think the reason it was actually a good choice was because I think at this point in America, people fear extremism more than anything. Whether it's extremes from the left or the extremes from the right. That's exactly why Trump's team is pushing the idea that Biden and them are extremists. I think the real only way that Trump can lose this, because honestly, I believe Trump had this prior to Corona and the George Floyd situation. So I thought he had this in the bag. So I think the real way you're going to be able to win this is to tell people, look, we're going to calm shit down. Shit is super, super hot. Everybody's super, super hot. We're just going to calm all this shit down. And I think that's what may win.
See, okay, here's a hill. So, yes, I agree with all that. Like, I agree that the way to combat Trump and to really get as many people as possible to be down for, and I'm not just talking about Democrats, I'm talking about the Lincoln Project, like I'm talking about Republicans who are like, yo, nah, this isn't it. Is not to go super left to like offend them, but to go like enough center-ish where they can trick themselves into thinking like, okay, this isn't as much of a sacrifice. My hill, go ahead.
So I actually had like a somewhat similar hill that I had like in another group chat earlier today. So my hill was, I'm actually kind of like nervous of Trump losing. And I know it sounds like a wild take, right?
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm kind of nervous is like, for me at least, this is like the first time that like, you know, the daily racism or just like casual racism that you deal with was actually brought out into the light, right? The COVID situation, right? How COVID's been handled. That's shown like we have major issues in education, major issues in healthcare, major issues in just like dealing with like housing, for example, right? I think Trump, to his credit, right, he's kind of called out the hypocrisy in the Democratic Party and how they handle certain situations, right? So I'm just nervous that like once we elect like Kamala and Biden, that everyone's just going to throw up their hands and be like, everything's good, everything's back in normal, and like
I agree.
Nothing legit happens. Like that criminal justice bill in the House doesn't get passed. Like the Green New Deal doesn't get passed.
Yep.
Like I'm like terrified about that because it's just gonna be the same thing over and over again, and I'm gonna get called like a far leftist by saying, "Hey, no, like these are issues that our grandparents have been dealing with."
Right.
So that actually, I'm glad I let you do that because like that kind of flows into my hill. So my hill has always been, well, there was a lot of hope in that, thinking like there's no way he wants to continue to do this. This is like got to be a lot more stressful than like even what we're seeing in the public. And like I still kind of feel like, not to say he didn't want to win, because I mean, if you watch the documentary, there's a you should watch this article on what to expect about the documentary that's on Netflix about Donald Trump. But he's always kind of wanted to go after this. So I think he wanted to win, but actually getting in here and doing the job, like you can see like a lot of the unraveling. And so I'm like, damn, do you really want to do 4 more years? But I mean, he's such a kind of egomaniac and narcissistic that of course. But I can't get past the fact that, and I brought this up in our group chats a bunch of times, like how he won and how like, because that was like very much like, this is like not a normal thing. Like Hillary had like 3 million more like votes than him or something like that. Like she had the highest margin of like kind of like votes for someone to lose. So that's one thing. And I think there was a lot more general optimism and like, let's give this a shot in voting him in the first time. Little Freudian slip there. But I think when you look at everything that's happened over the course of his presidency, let's not forget the man did get impeached. Like, even if we may look at it right now and say like, oh, it was a witch hunt, like you're still one of a few people to be impeached. And then you're also going for a re-election, which no other, impeached president has done. Like, then mind you, take into effect COVID. And one thing I said to you was how, like, I'm like, yo, if, like, look at all the billions. Like, the one thing that should stick to people about COVID and how serious it is like these billionaire entities that are not allowed to, like, literally play ball because this thing is getting in the way. And I'm like, if they don't get to do this and their money is impacted, not just this year, but next year, like, someone's going to get blamed. And it doesn't seem too far to want to blame Trump and his administration if there was some stuff on the front end you could have done. And so I just kind of think that, like, I'm kind of waiting for people to end up in mass kind of saying, yo, I'm off that bandwagon, because we've seen a lot of people decide to stay on and stay with him because you want to align with your party or it's the cool thing to do.
Right.
So I'm like waiting for the bit of like, nah, this actually isn't it. And maybe that's where I think the centrist people come into play.
But I also feel like a lot of people are genuinely ignorant when it comes to how politics work.
100%.
And it's sad to say this, and I think for me, one of my biggest things, especially like as I've been through school, and as I've gone through school, because my major, for anybody that doesn't know, is political science and pre-law. So one of the things that I've noticed is a lot of people align themselves with the party and kind of feel as if their ideologies or their views have to align with the party that they have selected.
It's a two-party system.
I'm extremely critical of the Democratic Party because I don't think Democratic and Black are, they don't necessarily go together. And I think I think a lot of people, especially now in this whole pandemic, prior to like you said before, I did too believe that Donald Trump was going to get another. I was for sure he was going to win again before COVID. And I think a majority of his supporters have been impacted by, unemployment, the fact that we've only gotten one stimulus check for $1,200, and the whole mistreatment or treatment of unemployment insurance. And I think it has genuinely impacted a majority of his voters who are now struggling because of the economy that due to COVID, and they're now looking at him like, you have not stepped up to the plate and you haven't done for me what I needed you to do. But he never has. He's never showed up for the little guys, for the regular people. He's very much pro, big business, millionaire. He doesn't care about the poor, the middle class. He's a true Republican. And so I think when you think about that, I'm not at all surprised of how he handled this situation. First of all, he should never have been a president, and to begin with, he knows nothing. He has no political background, no law background, no government background, nothing. So I think with me,
2020.
So for me, when Joe Biden ultimately got picked, was I happy about it? No, but I realized that was what they chose. The Democratic Party chose as their candidate, and I knew that I couldn't not vote. So going forward, I was like, okay, I was hoping he would pick somebody a little bit more progressive. Like maybe, like you said, Susan Wright, maybe Elizabeth Warren. I would have been okay with Elizabeth Warren, but I think Kamala is the right choice for Joe Biden, but I do not believe she's the right choice for us.
So, all right. So I just want to piggyback off something you said earlier about, we kind of pick our lanes when it comes to political parties. That's the unfortunate thing about the two-party system. Even Canada has like 3 major parties, and like other, like if you go across Europe, they have like multiple parties, like different things, people jump around. Like we're just stuck in this two-party system. But the thing is like when it comes to elections, right? The people who should vote never do, and it's always the people that probably like it's their right to vote, but like they're not voting for the benefit of everyone. They're the ones who really do the voting. So, like, I think that Trump wins, and he only wins if voting turnout is low. So, like, just ignore the polls, ignore everything. If voter turnout is low, I think he wins at a very skin off his teeth. He wins.
But I doubt that this time. I think with COVID, in the George Floyd situation, the Black Lives Matter movement, I think that ultimately those two turning points are going to be in every history book. Because
I also would like to applaud
everything.
The fact that a lot of people are getting educated on their rights as far as voting. A lot of felons are starting to find out that depending on the state you live in, you might get your rights restored, and they're actively, trying to participate in this election, because I think everyone realizes that this is an all hands on deck type situation. We have to do the best that we can, and that means everybody has to vote. If you're able to vote, you have to vote. And I think a lot of people are taking the criticism of Kamala Harris as, well, we're cool with Trump. We spent the last 4 years, attacking this man, saying we hate him, telling how much we're dissatisfied, how disgusted we are. So I think it's fair for people to be critical of candidates, but also recognizing their role in an election. And I know a lot of people have said in the past, it doesn't matter if we vote because of the Electoral College, like it doesn't really matter. But I think we really have to emphasize, and I think I tweeted the other day that I would love to see more literacy for in the Black community on politics, on government, on laws, so that you realize how much it impacts you. And I also want this same energy for local elections. A lot of times 100%. People choose they ignore the governor elections, they ignore their mayor elections, their state representatives, because they're so focused on the president. Yes, we should focus on that, but we should also focus on the things that impact us, and all of them do. For example, during COVID, whether your state closed or not, or the way your state kind of operated was up to your governor. And I think a lot of people tend to forget that. So we have to be well versed in politics and how it works, so that we know exactly what we're fighting for. We're angry, we are, but we have to pick the right person that's kind of going in it. And I don't think Joe Biden and Kamala are it, but I hope that they are. I hope that they will use, this outrage that people have expressed as a kind of like a bouncing point for them to kind of start working on fixing some of the issues that we've been complaining about.
So I kind of want to piggyback off of like what John was saying. So there's an uncomfortable truth that we kind of have to like look at with, yes, your vote is important, but at the same time, it's really not, right? Because your vote,
not facts though.
No, but your vote is only important in like 10 states. Like, let's just keep it a buck, right? Your vote's only important in like 10 states at most, right? Like, if you live in California, if you live in New York, you can vote for Vladimir Putin. Who cares? Like, that state's going to vote blue. If you live in Texas, that state's going to vote red. So, like, the Black Lives Matter protests, the uncomfortable truth is Black people usually live in either reliably red or reliably blue state. The only other state that actually kind of matters that like we should probably be targeting towards, that has a lot of Black people, is Michigan. And I haven't really seen anything much from the Biden campaign and campaigning in Michigan to try to swing those voters blue.
Well,
Pennsylvania's another one too, right? You should be campaigning heavily in Pennsylvania. I'm seeing like reports like, oh my God, like polls are up in Texas and Georgia. I don't give a fuck. They're not going blue. Like they're not. Like,
and I mean, I think that's what
you see, but I think right there is our problem. I think if 2020 has showed us absolutely anything, is we have to stop taking things for granted. Michigan was blue for damn near how long? And then they flipped. Wisconsin was blue for how long? And they flipped. So my point is, you're in like, yes, you're not necessarily wrong, but I also feel like if you do get complacent, things like the last election can happen. When you're right, if you're not also like taking care of the people who got you there, while also being understanding, like, hey, I understand it's even like the point that we're even saying Texas may turn blue is the wildest thing I've heard in my life.
That in 2016 right?
Like that is the wildest thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's the exact same thing in 2016.
I also want to say, like, I think as a community, we have to stop expecting candidates to kind of like show up for us and us only. I think you take Barack Obama, for example. Black people. I can admit I was 11 at the time, so it doesn't matter to me. But I've heard older people, my mom, my grandma, have said, I only voted for that nigga because he was Black. And a lot of Black people shared those thoughts. And so I think for them, when he showed up and did what a president does. And, you know, every president picks kind of like that one thing they leave their term with, or their you know, the office with. And for Obama, it was healthcare and the same-sex marriage law. So for us, we were very outraged that he wasn't our president. Like, he didn't do anything for us. And that's what happens when you don't understand how it works. You're not going to get everything that you want out of a candidate. And I think we have to kind of let go of that way of thinking. You're not. You know, you kind of have to, I personally feel like we have to pick, we're always going to have to, I'm sad because I always feel like we're going to have to choose the lesser of two evils when it comes to picking a president. And it kind of hurts me because I wish we would be able to have more progressive, you know, up-to-date candidates who are kind of like understanding the climate that we're living in, and not like some shit that doesn't matter, or like some old way of thinking. And so I feel like with Biden and Kamala, right now, I don't really know what they plan on doing. They have said what they plan on doing, but I think with any other president, we kind of have to see what they're going to do and kind of have to critique them as we go along. You know, if they get in the White House and just kind of like are doing what we thought they were going to do, which is absolutely nothing, then we have to say something about it. And we have to kind of keep pushing for candidates that align with what we are asking for. We kind of settle, and we are not forcing these candidates to kind of do what we're asking them to do.
So just one more thing, and I'll just like shut up after this. Look, we said the exact same thing in 2016. Georgia might turn purple. Texas might turn purple. Stop it. As Carlye said, right? As Carlye said, your local elections matter the most. So if we can't even turn the state general assemblies blue, that is more important to me than like, you know, than the presidential election that they turn blue.
Fair.
To me, it doesn't matter. Like we didn't lose Georgia. We didn't lose Texas. You know, I mean, those states, they matter, but they should matter more on the local level. We should be focusing our energy more on the local level. For our presidential elections, we gotta focus on the states that, like John said, were reliably blue. If they're trending the other way, we have tons of polling data that says that. We should be focusing our attention towards that. And that's the Midwest, and that's Pennsylvania. We gotta focus our attention there. I don't want to hear about Georgia. I love Georgia. I love Atlanta. Beautiful place. I don't want to hear about 2020. Texas, love Texas. Never been there. Been there once. Great place. Don't want to hear it during a presidential election. Focus on Michigan. Focus on Wisconsin. Focus on PA. Those are the places we lost. Please focus there. Focus on Ohio, Florida, those places.
All these places. So this was really good. This is like really, really good. So I'm glad I had you all here. I'm glad this was the first one. We will definitely work on getting this rolled out soon. Like I said in the beginning, who knows how often these will be. I think as long as I have enough hills to kind of go off of, I'll roll it out, and I'll invite some cool people to share. But one thing that I wanted to talk about too, in just response before I close out, was like, I think that's the importance of right now. Like this, like John said, this is going to be in like the history books, and I think the one thing that this sparked in a lot of people was just the importance of voting, and that even if this isn't like really true, but just the idea of like, if you don't take this kind of civic duty seriously, then this is the type of shit that could happen. And so I think, I mean, yes, for like the presidential election, sure, there may be some places that matter more than others, but as we, definitely spoke to, the local elections, and especially electing people who are going to be your representatives for the Electoral College, are these things that matter a lot more. And it could be a domino effect if you don't pay attention to those. And then you got somebody who's like not really here representing the things that, you care about. And so I think we can all kind of speak to the fact that, sure, maybe Biden and Big Mala aren't necessarily our like first choices, but it certainly seems like the goal and the mission here is getting Duke out of office.
Absolutely.
And we can kind of worry about kind coming together a lot more and really doing this the right way. Shout out to Revolt. They've had a lot of really great summits and stuff like that, talking about how to get Black issues to a more prominent place. Killer Mike's show on Netflix talked a lot about like Black people kind of doing their own thing. I've been really against like the two-party system. I think it really stifles stuff, and it gets to a point where we are right now where we just politicize everything, and where we should really be focused on progress socially. This gets turned into, oh, well, that's a talking point for the Democrats. And it's like, no, this has nothing to do with politics. The only thing that happened was a politician saw this as an end to be able to like go and get people who fuck with this topic over here. And then they said it, and now you think this is political when this is really a social issue or, something else.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah, really quick.
Go ahead. No, you're done. We're done. It's okay.
Okay. But no, this is great, and just the fact that this went on as long as it did definitely shows how important this is. There was a lot of gems dropped here, so like when I'm not going to edit, but when I go through and get timestamps and stuff like that, I will definitely try to find different points to put in links and stuff like that, because listen, like I definitely want this to be a thing where we can be lighthearted, we can be joking and funny, but we can't do that if we don't get serious at points in times, if we don't use that bit of humor to ultimately educate. So thank you all for being here for this. Like I said, who knows when the next one is going to come out? You just have to stay by your computer to find out when it's going to happen. But I definitely want to have all of you back again. And this is Of All the Hills. Peace out.
Go Howard.
Bless.
Bye.